Hello everyone, welcome to the Ichimoku.co daily stock market review for the trading day ending Monday, November 17th. Firstly, looking at the relative performance of the various indices, and here we see the underperformer, the Russell 2000, down 0.82% and very strongly underperforming the other indices. The Nasdaq 100 was also down today, down 0.27%, whilst the Dow Jones 30 and the S&P 500 were both up slightly by 0.07%. We're moving first to the Ichimoku chart of the S&P 500, and here we see a white body candle, buyers closing with control, and a larger white body than we've seen for the past 4 consecutive trading days. A lot of indecision in the market in the recent past, the market open and closing around the same level, suggesting that there was very little momentum in net terms in either direction. But today we've seen the buyers find some upside momentum, and it does suggest a possibility of the market trading to higher levels. We've also seen the market close up towards the high, suggesting that the buyers have closed with control, and that also does seem as though there is a possibility that the buyers could come back into this market and establish a new major high above the 2046 level. Importantly, we have a bullish market in all three timeframes here, trading above the cloud, the Kijun-sen, the Tenkan-sen, and the Chikou span is well above the corresponding price action, and that's suggesting there still is some good solid upside momentum. And I think the story here over the past week or so is that whilst we should have been expecting something of a major pullback or a decent pullback, we saw very little from the sellers. They weren't taking the opportunity that was there for them, and they made no momentum to the downside in net terms between the open and the close. And the story here is really about the lack of strength from the sellers when they should have been able to partially retrace some of this very significant first and second time frame uptrend that the market's been in. Now, I suggest that if we do see the market come off after today's trading, and it certainly doesn't seem as though they will, but there still is a possibility of that, I suggest that they'll probably find some very strong support at the Tenkan-sen indicator, which hasn't been tested for some time, and that is trading at 2030, and just below there we have the previous swing high from some time ago around the 2019 level. But the stage is certainly set here for the buyers to come into the market and take on that high at 2046. Next to the bands with the S&P 500, and here we see the market continually for the past 4 consecutive trading days finding support at the upper band, failing to close below there, on each occasion closing just outside of there, suggesting we still have a fairly strong bullish bias in this market, and suggesting the opportunity is there still for the buyers. If we do see the market close within the bands, it would suggest that that strong bias has finished and potential for the market to retrace back towards the middle of the bands. But at the moment, no sign of that happening yet. And with the buyers taking back control of the market with today's candle, it does suggest a possibility of the market trading to higher levels. Moving next to the Dow 30, and here we see a different type of candle, a spinning top type candle, where we still have a white body as opposed to the black body of the previous day. So the buyers have found some upside momentum, but not as much as the previous candle on the S&P 500. And certainly the control that the buyers have taken here is not strong. It's very, very weak. They have just closed up above the midpoint level, but only just, and suggesting that there is still a lot of indecision in this market. But importantly here with the Dow 30, we haven't seen the sellers come into the market strongly, and it does suggest overall strength from buyers and a good likelihood of the market testing to and perhaps through that major high at 17,705. If we do see the market come off, solid support at the Tenkan-sen at 17,545. In terms of the bands with the Dow 30, and here we see for the past 4 trading days the market finding support either at or just within the bands. Today's price action rejected from there, but the buyers not taking strong control of the market, suggesting a possibility of the market trading back to within the bands. We have closed just slightly above there, suggesting we still do have a strong bullish bias, but very interesting to watch how the market develops from here with indecision entering the market for today's candle, and 2 days prior to today's candle we saw another indecisive type candle. So what we'd like to see to confirm this bullish bias would be for the buyers to come in and give us a strong candle up above this 17,705 level. If we do see the market close within the bands, possibility of the market testing lower, initial support down at that previous swing low 17,358 roughly, and then certainly down around the middle of the bands at 17,254. Moving next to the Nasdaq 100, and here we see a doji type candle that's formed following a candle from the previous day's trading where the buyers had taken back control. Prior to that, a spinning top type candle with pretty much neither side in control. There was hope there for the buyers to test to higher levels, but today we've seen the sellers come in and close below the previous close, suggesting that the sellers have found some keenness, possibility of the market trading to lower levels, but the sellers have failed to close with control here. The market has opened up just above the midpoint level, so weak control by the buyers, but on this indecisive candle there is a possibility of the market trading in either direction. Now the important thing here with this market too is the lack of strength from the sellers, looking to very strong support potentially at the Tenkan-sen, corresponding with the upper barrier of this congestion pattern that the market was in about a week and a half ago, around the 4181 level. If the market does trade through there, strong support at 4147 or below down to the window that still remains open. But we still do have a bullish market in all three timeframes, supported by the Chica span here, and it does suggest that there's a good likelihood of the buyers coming into this market and trading up through the resistance from roughly about these last three candles, about the 4225 level. And with the bands, similar type of trading activity that we've seen with the other indices, and the market bouncing off the upper band, and the upper band has held as support for longer than the other indices, and it certainly does highlight how important these bands can be. Good possibility of the buyers coming into the market here whilst we're still closing up above that upper band, so we will be watching very closely. If we do close within the bands, once again, potential for the market to trade to lower levels. And now we have the middle of the bands within that window that was opened up previously, so very solid support in that area. 4124 is where the middle of the bands trades at the moment. And next to the Russell 2000, in a very, very different market than we've seen with the other indices, a black body candle, and one which has tested within the window that was open up previously. That window hasn't been closed. It wasn't closed on that retracement, so it still is in play. The bearish close within the window does suggest that the sellers have some momentum here, and there's a good opportunity for them to actually close that window, trade down through there. If the market is going to trade to lower levels past there, I'd like to see a bearish close down through the bottom of that window. If that occurs, a good opportunity to see the market trade down to 1147. Now the sellers certainly have found some strong momentum over the past two candles, or two of the past three, fairly large black body candles compared to quite some time since we've seen that type of candle, and the sellers closing with strong control does suggest that the sellers in the short-term time frame certainly now are the major player. Importantly, the market trading up to the Tenkan-sen and finding resistance there and being strongly rejected from there. So very different characteristics than we've seen with the other indices. But a lot here does depend on how the market reacts to this window. And even though we have strength from the sellers, windows can be very powerful areas of support and resistance. And we can't be convinced that the market is going to trade significantly lower until we close down through that window. Now we still do have a bullish market in the longer term and medium term time frame. Importantly, that Kijun-sen is pointing flat, and price action tends to be attracted back towards a flat Kijun-sen, and that's what's been happening over the last few candles. So there is a possibility of the market continuing to the downside, but as I said, the bottom of the window, roughly about the 1160 region, 1159, is very, very important to the Russell 2000. Now looking at our bands here with the Russell 2000, and here we saw the market previously trading up above the upper band, finding support there, highlighting a strong bullish bias in this market. Now that's all finished. We saw the test within the bands, the solid bearish close really did convince that that phase of the market was over, and now we've seen the strong follow through for today's candle. It does suggest a very real possibility of the market testing to the middle of the bands, which is trading at 1154, and that means that if we can test down to there, there's a possibility of the market breaching that the bottom of the window. I suggest that if we do breach the bottom of the window, we should see some support coming in around the middle of the bands at 1154. Let's take a look at a few stocks, and on the bottom we have the weekly charts. On the left hand side Ichimoku, on the right hand side the bands, and on the top section we have the daily charts. So just looking at the weekly chart of Amazon, and we saw the market in that second last candle there is the candle that has completed trading, testing to the resistance at the cloud, and we've seen some strong rejection from there. The market closing just around the Kijun-sen indicator, it does suggest that the bearishness that we saw in all three timeframes has finished. A good rally from the previous week's trading, the buyers coming into the market very solidly, but the buyers will need to be strong enough to breach the Kijun-sen and the Ichimoku cloud. There is an opportunity for them there. The cloud is very thin over the next couple of weeks, so if the buyers are strong enough, they can change this trend around in all three timeframes on the weekly charts. But looking at the daily charts here, for today's test up on this bullish candle, we have seen the market test to the top of the cloud and be rejected from there. So sorry, that was for the previous day's trading, and for today's trading, testing to there on this small black body candle, once again the top of the cloud holding as resistance. So the buyers certainly aren't having all their own way. If we look at the relative performance in the recent past, solidly underperforming the overall market, the S&P, and then for the previous day's trading, some slight outperformance on the daily chart. So an opportunity here for the buyers if they are strong enough to breach that cloud. Looking at the bands on the weekly charts here, it does suggest that there's likely to be some very strong resistance at the upper band at 340.66, and that coincides not quite. The upper band, the Ichimoku cloud on the weekly chart is at 334. So even if the market can breach the cloud here on the weekly charts, we have potentially strong resistance at the upper band there as well. On the daily charts on the bands, it does suggest that we've had a strong bullish breakout and some bullish follow through, and the market coming off and not testing to the upper band does suggest that the buyers certainly are strong in this market, and there's a possibility of them going on with this move, but obviously a lot will depend on how they react around this upper band and the Ichimoku cloud. Next, moving to Google, GOOG, and looking at the lower left hand corner on the Ichimoku chart for the weekly, and we saw the market for the past 1, 2, 3, 4 consecutive weeks finding resistance at the top of the cloud, the Kijun-sen and the Tenkan-sen. No strong rejection from there, but if the market does trade off, then strong support at the bottom of the cloud around the 520 level. There is very solid overhead resistance, and the buyers are going to have to be very, very strong to trade this market back to the upside on the weekly charts. Looking at the bands on the weekly charts, however, finding resistance around the close to the lower band, and for the start of this week being rejected from that lower band and the sellers coming into the market. Looking at the daily chart here in the upper right, a breakout down below the lower band, a solid bearish close down below there suggests a possibility of the market trading to lower levels. We have a squeeze going on, so the market is set up for a trending opportunity on the daily charts, and if we are going to see that develop to the downside, I'd like to see a strong bearish candle continue the first time frame trend to the downside, and we then could see the market develop further. Based on the Ichimoku chart, however, we do see some strong support at the Kijun-sen indicator. We do have a bearish market in the longer term and fast term timeframes, and if the sellers are strong enough and they can close down below that Kijun-sen in a bearish manner, we could see the market testing down to lower levels and initially down to the swing low around the 508.22 region. Moving next to Hewlett-Packard, and here on the bands for the on the Ichimoku chart, bottom left-hand corner, we see the market testing up above both the Kijun-sen and the Tenkan-sen in a fairly bullish manner. For this week's trading, as it's developing, the market establishing a new high above the previous. The buyers coming into the market quite strongly, with the market bullish in all three timeframes, supported by the Chica span. On the bands on the weekly chart, bottom right hand corner, we see the market testing around the upper band there and breaking out on this new candle as it's developing. It hasn't finalized trading, so we can't say that we have a close up above that upper band and a return to the bullish market in that longer term time frame. So we're going to have to wait until the end of the week and see how that candle finishes. On the daily charts, a good solid bullish candle today. Buyers taking control, extending the size of the white body, finding support once again for the third consecutive trading day above the Tenkan-sen, bullish in all three time frames, supported by the Chikou span, suggesting that the market could continue to develop to the upside, but some potential resistance around this previous swing high where the market's just trading at the moment, roughly about the 37.47 level. Based on the bands, however, the market finding support at the upper band, bouncing off there in a strong bullish manner, suggests that we have a very strong bullish bias in this market. And if we can breach that swing high, we certainly could see the market trade significantly higher. And next to Yahoo, looking at the weekly charts here, another white body candle closing well up above the Kijun-sen, the Tenkan-sen and the cloud. Looking at the performance here, very strongly outperforming the S&P 500, volatility ticking up, manifesting itself as strong uptrending price action. Looking a little overextended in the depth away from the cloud, but certainly no sign of selling coming in here, buyers in control. With the bands here, very strong price activity up above the upper band, highlighting strong bullish bias, as we have with the daily chart in the upper right hand corner. Potential support at the upper band if the market does come off at 49.97 roughly. This current candle has formed a potential hanging man type pattern, very strong first and second time frame uptrend. It's all about the small body here, but the buyers have still maintained control as they did for the previous day, but it does suggest that the momentum in the market today is not as great as it was for the previous day, and that's why it's a potential hanging man. Always require confirmation, looking for a lower high and lower low, but even if it does occur, we're likely to find some strong support around that upper band. And based on the Ichimoku charts, good solid bullish activity up above each of the indicators. Relative strength is very strongly outperforming. One worrying thing here is that volatility is actually coming off, even though we still have some strong uptrending price action. But if it continues to come off, we could see a retracement or congestion. If we do see any retracement in that first time frame uptrend, the Tenkan-sen trading at 49.51 should provide very solid support.